is Julie Pearson, Little Thunder. Today is Thursday, February 4th, 2016, and I'm interviewing Mr. Lloyd Mitchell for the O State Stories interview series, sponsored by the Oklahoma Oral History Research Program at Oklahoma State University. Lloyd, you received your bachelor's and master's degrees from OSU when it was still Oklahoma A&M. You worked for the Bureau of Indian Affairs until your retirement. I look forward to learning more about your life and career and your OSU memories. Thank you for speaking with me today. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in Spencer, Tennessee, and most of my childhood days and growing up days was in Harmon County, Oklahoma.
What did your parents do for a living?
Dad was a sharecropper in Harmon County.
And mom, homemaker. And your mother a homemaker? Or?
Mother was a homemaker, yes.
How about brothers or sisters?
I have 3 brothers.
Where did you fall in the lineup?
I was number 2. My older brother graduated from OSU.
Okay.
And he was in education.
I understand you moved from Tennessee to Oklahoma during the Depression, which seems like kind of a hard time to make that move. What do you remember about what drew your family to Oklahoma?
Well, Dad really moved from Tennessee to Ohio and spent 5 years there working in a Miller Rubber Company. And then in 1927, we moved to Harmon County. And then I graduated from high school there at Arnett, which is a small consolidated high school out from Hollis.
Mm-hmm. So you were out in the country there?
Yes, we lived out north of Hollis in the OM community. And I don't know what the OM means. I inquired a number of times, and the best I could get was there was a big ranch back in the early days, OM Ranch.
I see. What are your memories of growing up in the OM community?
Well, OM was a great school, and I liked school. It was of course, had 2 or 3 classes in one room, and it was a good little grade school to go to. We had to walk to school about probably a mile and a half. We had to walk to school, and that's about. I felt like it was a good school, and that it was one that you could get a good education in.
What kinds of things did you do for fun?
Well, big thing I guess was hunt jackrabbits. We every boy had a dog just about. We always prided ourselves on having the fastest dog, and we'd go out hunting jackrabbits. And then at home we'd always, my brother and I, younger than I, we loved to play checkers. And we'd play checkers whenever we got a chance, and we'd keep track of who won, who lost, and so we had a great time playing checkers. Sometimes when Dad wasn't there, we'd get out and try to ride the calves like a cowboy, pretend he was a cowboy. And we went to church every Sunday. We'd go on a wagon team, and had a brush arbor, that little Church Christ there next to the school. Had a brush arbor built out there. In the summertime, they'd have what they call protracted meetings, and the yard would be filled with horses and teams and wagons. And I remember those clearly. So didn't have no television, didn't have no radio. Most of the time didn't have a car. Once in a while we'd have an old car. It broke down most of the time.
Well, you mentioned that you felt you got a pretty good education in Hollis. What was your favorite subject?
I guess thinking back on it, history was probably my favorite subject. I was real good at spelling. I'd go every year. We'd have a county contest for arithmetic and spelling, and even at OM, I would represent my grade in spelling. And once or twice I did in arithmetic, but there's another boy that consistently beat me in arithmetic. But I liked history and geography and that type of thing. I wasn't the best at math. I had to work a little bit at mathematics.
Were there some reasons that, looking back now, you think you got interested in agronomy, which is what you majored in?
Yeah, when I started this college at Cameron back in 1939, I didn't know what to major in, and had a dean of men, Dean Breedlove, there, and he taught chemistry. So I got interested in chemistry there at Cameron, and then in fall 41 I went to OU and enrolled as a chemistry major. Well, you had to take calculus, two courses in calculus, and I got through the first one, but I had to drop the second one because somehow or other, I just never did grab on to what it was about. But then I was pulled into the Air Force in the fall of 41, and after I came back then and went to OSU in 45, I changed the majors back to agronomy because I was kind of buggered with that math that I had to take.
Now, had either of your parents gone to college?
Beg pardon?
Had your parents gone to college?
Yeah, they have. Dad went to Burritt College in Spencer. Burritt was the second school of higher learning associated with the Churches of Christ at that time. And Dad got in 2 years there. It was probably as high as it went, kind of what we'd call a junior college. Mother, I'm not sure, she must have got through high school because she taught school some, so I assume that she got through high school.
Was it easy for you to go to Cameron? What did you do after high school before that move to Cameron College?
Well, I graduated in 1937, and there was absolutely no work for a kid. Dad didn't need me on the farm, really. And there's absolutely no work around there for a kid. So I went into the CCC camps, Civilian Conservation Corps camps. And I was in a camp up north of Altus there. It's what is now the Quartz Mountain State Park, where the CCC is located. And I spent a year and a half there. And I remember I was what they call the assistant camp engineer, which wasn't anything detailed or hard about. I just drug a chain and held a rod for the engineer. It was raining one day, and we were in the engineering building, and he said, Mitchell, did you ever think about going to college? His name was English. I said, Mr. English, there's nothing in the world I'd rather do than be able to go to school, go to college, but there's no way I can go. Dad hasn't got anything to help me with, and no way I see I can go. He said, well, I'll tell you what. He said, I got a friend over at Cameron. His name is Clarence Breedlove. And I'll write Clarence about you and see what he says. So Mr. Breedlove Mr. English got a note back from Clarence Breedlove that said, yes, said, send him up. Says, we'll find a way. Says, we can give him half room and board. Half room and board was $9.
Wow.
And so, this was in January of '39, mid-semester. I remember very well, woke up that morning and there was a cold norther blowing and it was cold and windy, and I just kind of debated, well, do I want to try to go up there or not? Well, yeah, I do. So had $25 in my pocket, that's all. Dad had spent, and I didn't regret it at all. They sent $25 a month to your parents, and he had to spend it for living, which was fine with me, but he had $25. And I went down to Hollis and Route 62 and put my thumb in the air and thumbed my way to Cameron. And that's how I got to Cameron.
Well, after a stint at Cameron and OU, then you end up at OSU. How did you
Well, I spent 2.5 years. I spent that semester, and then I graduated at midterm, but I stayed on for another semester. I spent 2.5 years. And then I wanted to go on, and of course still didn't have any money to go on with, but I wrote every school in the state. I wrote to OSU, I wrote to OU, I wrote to Goodwill, which is affiliated with OSU, and didn't get any first didn't get any chances. And then Dad had a friend there in Harmon County. He was a state legislature, and he said he found me a job to come up to Norman, working with the mental institution there. They had several students going to school there. They had a place for them to sleep out there and provide. So that semester of '41, I put in at OU, and then the war broke, of course, and so that finished that. In 1945, rather than go back to OU, I went to OSU, 1945.
And your brothers, I guess, also served in World War II.
Yeah, 4 boys. We were all just the right age and caught us all up. I put in 4 years. The other boys put in about, 2 of them put in about 3 years, and then the younger one, he was in a couple of years. World War II caught us all.
So when you ended up going to OSU at this point, did you have some resources, or were you?
Well, OSU? Oh, yeah. GI Bill of Rights. That was a salvation.
Right.
That was the best piece of legislation the Congress ever passed. $90 a month. Of course, then I had a wife and 2 children, so I had to work at anything else I could find.
When did you meet your wife, your first wife?
I met the wife down at Cameron there, and she started in September of '79, and so it wasn't long after that till her and I dated and all through, and then we married in 1942 in San Antonio.
Okay. So when you entered OSU, had you already decided you were going to major in agronomy?
Well, I was a farm boy, and I thought everybody was engaged in farming. And I knew a little bit about farming, not too much. And so that's why I switched from chemistry over to agronomy. And I liked agronomy. It was interesting, and I really enjoyed it.
Were there a couple of professors who stood out for you?
Yeah. I was just the other day trying to remember the man that was really, he was a soils teacher. Murphy was the head of the soils. This fellow was assistant to Murphy, and I can't think of his name, but he was a sharp, really sharp fellow and good prof. I just can't call his name.
What kind of an impact did he have on you?
Well, he was a very, very smart fella. One thing, he couldn't tolerate fools. If you gave a smart answer, you got cut down. So he was always careful with your words when you answered him. But he was good. He was a good man, good to his students. But he required a lot of you, and he made you want to study, made you want to learn.
What was the environment on campus like outside of your major?
That year I started was a chaos in 45. You had all these veterans flocking in. A lot of veterans coming in, trying to find a place to live. And
the campus and the town weren't prepared for those numbers.
No, the numbers were terrific in the fall of 45. They got a lot of Quonset huts. What the military didn't need anymore, and they called it the Hill. And the vets lived out there on the hill. I was a little more fortunate. I was flying B-25s up at Enid when the war quit, and I made a quick break down to Stillwater to find a place to live, and I found a little two-bedroom house. It backed up against the railroad tracks. Can't think of the name of the streets, but it's kind of in the northeast part of the campus. And paid $20 a month for it. Well, I could foresee the rents booming. And so I gave her a year, paid her a year's rent in advance so I could cinch that $20 a month down. She moaned and groaned about it. Oh, when that's up, I'll fix you. I just grinned because I knew I'd be out of there by then.
That was smart. How about transportation, etc.?
The what?
How about transportation? Were you walking to school then from the house? Were you walking from
walking and riding a bike mainly. Mm-hmm. Yeah, back and forth, yeah.
Did you work at all while you were studying, or
everything? Yeah. I worked at anything I could find. I mopped floors, I washed windows, I mowed lawns. Anything I could find to make an extra dollar, I worked at, because wife and two kids, the $90 went away, but it didn't go all the way.
Right.
So I was just doing, little pickup jobs like that.
Mm-hmm. What do you recall about any campus tradition?
I can't quite think of any campus tradition. I wasn't involved too much in other than work and study.
Right. Did you go to any sporting events though, or?
Oh yes, I made every football game I could when we could get a babysitter. But we made all the football games.
How about your favorite place off campus?
Well, of course, wife and I went to church there all the time, and I loved going to church and associating with the young people there. But as far as any other eating place, anything like that, we didn't have anything. We didn't eat out much.
Right. Did you have a favorite place on campus to study or hang out?
Not really. The library was overcrowded. I remember people standing everywhere reading and couldn't find a place to sit down. And of course, once in a while they didn't have a student union. They had a small house-like thing. I forget what they called it, but once in a while I'd go there.
And you and your wife didn't go to any of the dances there?
Dances?
Yeah.
No.
Okay. Probably not much time to hang out with friends either.
No, most of the friends you had was kids that went to church. We went to Church of Christ there, and kids that went to church there, they'd have things, associated with the church we'd go to. That's the main place we went to.
Did your parents come see you while you were in school?
No, they didn't. They didn't have any way to come. They never did come while I was in school. Not that they wouldn't have liked to, but just beyond their doing.
Were you able to go home, you and your family, for vacations?
While I was in school, yeah, we had an old car. My wife, Dad had an old 36 Buick he sold us, and it ran most of the time. And so we'd visit with the folks some.
Do you remember homecoming at all, or any parades?
Oh, we would go to them, but I didn't participate.
Right. And do you have any memories of Gallagher or Iba? I'm sorry.
Gallagher, Iba.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we made several of the basketball games. Well, ones we could, yeah, like that.
How about Theta Pond? How about Theta Pond?
Our children were small then. See, the boy was born in 43 and the girl in 45, and we'd go down and picnic there fairly frequently. They liked to watch the ducks and the birds there, and so we used it kind of a place to picnic.
What are your memories of the town of Stillwater?
I don't have any particular memories, good or bad, really, about Stillwater. We didn't, of course, we didn't have enough money, you know. We didn't shop much there, and I didn't form an opinion whether good or bad.
And after graduation, you went after your master's degree within 2 years, right? What did you do between your bachelor's and your master's degree?
I was working with the BIA. We moved to Shawnee. They had a house for us to move into, and that was probably the reason I took that job over any other. Had a nice 3-bedroom home, so we moved to Shawnee, and we stayed there, and I continued working on my master's degree then.
Well, I was going to ask how you got your job with the BIA.
Uh,
How did you end up working for the BIA?
well, they had, I guess they had recruiters, 1 or 2 recruiters were to recruit students, and I'll brag a little bit. I was a good student. I belonged to Alpha Zeta, which is the honorary institution for agricultural students. And I also was a Phi Kappa Phi graduating, and I think that kind of helped me to get a job. And they showed up on campus, and Soil Conservation Service had offered me a job too, but BIA had this house, and that tipped the scales for me.
Right. Well, how did you like Shawnee?
It was fine. It was a nice town. We made lots of friends there. It was a nice town.
So, as you know, the BIA has this kind of complex and contentious history, and in 1947 it just sort of gotten that name, Bureau of Indian Affairs. I'm wondering about some of the changes you may have seen while you were working there, and perhaps explain what you did also.
You mean while I worked for them? Or?
Yes.
Well, yeah, there was a big change, I thought. When I started working for the BIA, they would pick the best people they could find to work for them, irregardless of whether they were Indian or white. And it was merit. You got your job by merit, and you kept your job by merit. And gradually, and it kept going, they started employing more Indian people, which was all right. There was nothing wrong with that if they could match their white opponent. But it got so that the only people they were employing were Indians, and they would necessarily they gave more credit to them being Indian than they did to the qualifications of the job. And the white person, which was me, of course, it didn't hurt me because I'd already went on up the ladder. But going in, it would keep good white boys and girls from going in. And I can see the merits to that, see the reasoning for that, but it changed a lot. That's one reason I quit early. They had a RIF, a RIF in 50, let's see, when was that RIF? 73, I guess. 73, they had a reduction in force. And so I got out early.
In 73. And what did you do at the BIA?
What did I do?
Mm-hmm.
I was chief land appraiser, both at Darko and at Albuquerque. Had several appraisers working under me, and I explained a while ago, any transaction dealing with Indian land required an appraisal.
Right. And you also worked in South Dakota for a while. So
yeah, the first, I worked 5 years before I went into the BIA as a soil scientist and stayed as a soil scientist about 5 years. And most of that time was in South Dakota. And then in 55, I had a chance to switch over to real estate appraisals. And that's when I made the switch. Mm-hmm. Spent about 20 years as an appraiser and about, 25 years as an appraiser, I guess, and the other 4 or 5 as a soil scientist.
Did you enjoy living in Albuquerque?
Yes, very much. Albuquerque was a nice town. Really did enjoy it. When I retired in '73, we debated about staying there and retiring, living there. Most of our children, grandchildren live in Oklahoma, and that tipped it. We said, well, we'll go where we can be. And then they all left. Like a flock of quail, they were gone. I've got one
when you moved back to Oklahoma?
Yeah, I got one granddaughter lives here now.
Well, what were some of your best memories of your work with the Bureau of Indian Affairs?
Well, I was fortunate in having good supervisors. When I look back on it, I had very good supervisors. In Anadarko, I was 12 years. I worked under the man that was head of the land division. He was a Cherokee Indian, a lawyer, very smart, very fair, and really enjoyed working under him. And at Aberdeen, I had another man. So it was, I guess, the quality of my supervisors was probably the one thing I appreciated more than anything else.
I guess after you retired, then you began working as an independent appraiser?
I did, yeah. I worked till, I guess I was about 88 or 89 when I quit.
When you quit doing that?
When I quit appraising.
So you, about 12 years. So were you just consulting, or were you working for, I guess you were consulting?
Well, I was appraising. I appraised my specialty was appraising farm and ranch properties because of my education. Then I did a lot of house appraising, residential appraising, and didn't do too much commercial. But I stayed pretty busy all those years, and I enjoyed my work a lot. I enjoyed appraising.
Is there any sort of funny story or unusual appraisal you did that you remember?
Well, yeah, I did some that, I remember one that was particularly enjoyable, and when I was at Darko, over in Shawnee, there were two tribes that owned land jointly. The Potawatomis and maybe the absentee Shawnee. I forget, but they out south of town where the agency were, they had a hospital out there for a long time. But they owned quite a bit of land and owned that hospital property, and they wanted to divide it so that it wasn't joint ownership. And so I had to appraise the whole property and then make a division of it that would turn out to where each tribe got approximately the same values. And then I had to go to Washington to testify up there about the appraisal. And I took advantage. I took my whole family with me, and we made a vacation out of it. That's one appraisal that I did. There were several of them I did enjoy.
And it was not your first time traveling to Washington yourself, probably, but for the family it was.
No, back in 1949, the Department of Interior was selecting young men that had a promise of, advancement, and they selected, in the nation, they selected 3 out of the BIA. 2 of them were Indian, and then myself. One was a Zuni and one was a Navajo, and then myself. And we 3 then were selected to go to Washington and spend several months there in training. And so wife and I moved in 49, I guess it was. We moved to Washington for a few months. That was enjoyable. Then we had 3 children. So we enjoyed that a lot.
What did you like about Washington?
Well, it was I guess actually we lived over in Virginia, and wasn't too much I liked about the city itself. So big, so crowded, and of course we didn't have much transportation. Of course I enjoyed very much we took courses at American University, I believe it was there. And I enjoyed the training program. We had met some nice men, and it kind of advanced me pretty quick. I remember I got to jump a grade. I was a GS7, and I went from a 7 to 11, and I skipped the 9, and it was because of that special training that I got up there.
Right. A little pay raise there. When did you move to your present home here?
When did we buy this home? 03.
03. Have you been involved in any civic organizations or activities here in Oklahoma City?
No, I haven't gotten involved in any of that.
What has changed about Oklahoma City since you moved here?
Well, the growth for one thing. Traffic's got a lot worse, a lot more crowded. It don't bother us too much because we seldom get into Oklahoma City. We go to Norman.
Okay.
It's good roads from here to Norman. So we do we do our grocery shopping here because we're close to a Walmart. But buying other things, we go to Norman.
Go to Norman.
Shop, yeah.
Well, if somebody were to come visit, what would you suggest they see either in Oklahoma City or Norman?
To see and do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there in Norman, they've got this out on the south side of Norman there, where they have the extinct animals and all that, you know what I mean?
The
Can't think of
museum
the
there?
name.
Yeah, museum.
Sam Noble
History
Museum.
Or something.
Yeah, Sam Noble Museum.
Yeah, people come to see us, haven't been there, we like to take them to that. Or Cowboy Hall of Fame, that's very, very interesting. And this new Oklahoma City Museum out by the Capitol, you've been there?
No.
It's a really, really nice exhibit there. It's a huge building and relatively new.
The Historical Museum, I think, isn't it?
Museum,
Oklahoma
we
Historical
go
Society.
there.
Yeah.
And places like that, you know, we take our visitors to see.
Right. How about Stillwater? Do you get up to Stillwater still?
Very seldom. Here about 4 or 5 months ago, they had this induction of men into the Hall of Fame, and my son came down and picked me up. Me and I went up there. Other than that, we don't get to Stillwater too much. Of course, I'll be 98 in August, and wife, she's not as old. I won't say how old she's listening. But health things keep us from going too much.
Right. Well, you certainly don't look your age. Well, and somebody, your son was the one inducted,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
You want to tell us a little bit about him and if any other of your children attended OSU, because he went to OSU?
Well, I had some nieces and nephews that went to OSU.
Well, David's kids went to OSU.
Huh?
David's kids went to
This
OSU.
is Nancy talking.
David?
David's kids went to OSU.
Oh,
Your
yeah, well, yeah,
grandchildren,
that's my nieces and nephews.
Okay.
They
His
went to
grandchildren.
OSU.
He had 2 grandchildren graduate from OSU.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, you're right. I'm wrong.
But your son was inducted in the
Yeah,
Hall of
he's
Fame.
well, as I say, he's a professor. He got his doctorate from North Texas, I believe it was, at Denison. He got his doctorate. He graduated from, got his master's at Southern Methodist, and then he got his doctorate there and taught several years up there. And he's got a good going business. As I say, it's highly computerized, and I can't tell you what he does. His son now, he's pretty much retired. His son's taken over the business and doing well at it.
Do people you know, are they aware of your OSU connection?
Huh?
Are the people you know aware?
Oh, yes,
Of your OSU
yes.
connection.
I'm not too bashful about about that. They know my OSU connection, yeah.
And you still follow the football games?
Oh, very
OSU.
much so, yeah. Basketball, they play tonight.
Okay.
Play Wisconsin tonight, their basketball team.
Are there any other cowboys in this area that you know? In this house? That
Yeah, go to church with several that cowboys, yeah.
What advice would you give to students at OSU today, or to faculty or administrators?
I wouldn't have too much advice, just thinking a little more personal. One of the students ought to major in something in which he can get a job. He ought to look into it. Does our economy need people like this? I'm thinking of people like one of our wife's grandsons. He's taking drama. What's he going to do when he gets a degree in drama? You know, and other things. So that would be one thing, to choose which avenue, which field you're going to get in. You or your parents should do some looking into, is there a demand for it?
And no advice for the faculty, though, or administrators?
No, none of that. I don't know any of the faculty, long gone, the people I knew.
It seems many OSU alumni are loyal to the school. What do you think it is about OSU that sparks such loyalty?
Well, I would say, just I'm having to speak from the past. I don't know too much about the present, but the instructors are interested in students, genuinely interested in students, and teaching them and teach them to work at it, be good at it. And OSU's always had a reputation of friendliness. The campus, you know, some of the other schools maybe don't have that so much, but that's one thing I would say. I wouldn't hesitate at all to advise a student to go to OSU.
I'm kind of thinking back to the story you told about working, for the WPA and kind of getting steered in the direction of college to Cameron. I wonder if you've gone back to, was it at Altus that you did that work?
The Quartz Mountain
I'm sorry.
CCC camp?
CCC camp. Have you gone back? And
Yeah,
looked at
several
some of those
times.
things?
Yeah, they have a nice lodge there.
What are your thoughts on what some
Oh, it's just always enjoyable to try to pick out spots I remember when I was there, you know, and I generally had a good time there. CCC's was a good organization. It was, it picked up enlisted kids like myself, you know, that didn't have anywhere to go, any job to do, and gave them a job, $1 a day. But, you know, that was something, $1 a day. And it's kind of fun to go back and see those things.
All right. Well, is there anything you would like to talk about that we didn't cover today?
This probably hasn't got much to do with what we're doing. I'll tell you a story that kind of interests me, intrigues me. I was going to school at OU in fall of 41, when the war broke. Well, come Christmas vacation, I had already passed all my tests out here at the air base for Air Force. And I wanted to go home and see my folks before the Air Force got me, before they called me up. Well, we only lacked about 2 weeks of completing our courses in the fall of '41 there. It'd come Christmas, and then we'd come back and spend a couple of weeks and then take our exams, you know. So I, of course, didn't have any transportation, and I hitchhiked wherever I went. I remember going to the dean of men and saying, asking him, telling him, say, is there any way I can not have to come back after going? I'd like to go spend a little time with my folks. I've already passed my exams and I'm going to be called up shortly. He said, well, maybe, he said, tell you what, I said, take this slip of paper, go to your instructors, get them to put the grades you got at the present time, and that will be the grade that you get for the subject. Okay, so I did it. I was taking some hard courses, taking chemistry, German, physics, taking some hard courses. So I did it and got them signed up and went back. And shortly in January, February, they called me and I went off into the Air Force. 2 or 3 months later, I got a notice from the school. Eyes, incompletes, they gave me. not an hour of credit.
Oh my goodness.
Here I spent that semester working out at the mental institution, working like a dog, you know. Oh, I was pretty teed off bad. Well, then not too many, a few years ago, not too many, my oldest son, wrote a book about me and my Air Force experiences and all that. It's a good book.
What's it called?
Kipling's Air the Third. Kipling Air was the name of the plane. Kipling's Air the Third. Well, in this book, I had recited this. Got a nephew who lives at Duncan. He's my wife's nephew, but I've known him since he was 10 years old, and he's just nephew to me, and I'm his uncle. Ed Apple's his name. Well, Ed, he was on the Corporation Commission here for a while, and he's a politician there in Duncan. He read this book. He said in that story, he said, Uncle Lloyd, he said, they did you dirty. I said, absolutely. He said, I'll write David about it. It's David and Ed. I'll write David about it.
And this is David Bourne.
David Bourne.
Right.
So he wrote David Bourne about it. Well, David Bourne said, Ed, I'll look into it. He looked into it. Sure enough, it was like I said. So they got up a dinner and a big recognition for it, and they didn't give me any credit, but I got a real nice plaque in the office I'll show you that resulted. But David got sick that day. I'm sure it was intentional. He didn't want it. He was eating crow and he didn't like it, you know. Yeah, I got a nice plaque over it. You want to go, are you about through? I'll go in the office and show you a few
Yes,
things.
we'll go take a look and take a picture. Well, thank you for sharing that story with us, and thank you for your time today.
Well, it's enjoyable. I'm glad to be able to do it.